Jada Pinkett-Smith. We've been separated for 7 years. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Last year, Jada Pinkett-Smith found herself in the headlines alongside Will Smith as a consequence of the infamous Oscar slap that Will Smith administered to Chris Rock. This precipitated a detailed analysis by me of Jada Pinkett-Smith and also Will Smith. If you haven't watched those videos, then I really need to question what you've been doing with your life. But parking that for the moment, if you haven't, go and watch them. Not only will you be entertained and informed, you'll learn plenty about these two individuals. For those of you that have watched them, you will know that the outcome was that Jada Pinkett-Smith is a narcissist and Will is an empath. And I explained in detail how those outcomes have arisen. Knowing that that is what both of them are, it provided me with repeated intermittent opportunities to examine particularly her behaviour and to demonstrate certain facets of the dynamic between her and him. Now, there has been an almighty revelation, which I'm sure that you've seen in the news, and many of you have contacted me about. Thank you for doing so. Jada Pinkett-Smith undertook an interview where she professed that she and Will Smith have been separated for the last 7 years. But is it all as it seems? Well, it bears further examination, and of course we do so through the prism of her narcissism. From the further evidence that I have amassed, you can tell that in the dynamic it's very much the case that she calls the shots and Will more or less does as he's told. We've seen that, for instance, in the way that she dragged him onto her red table talk and humiliated him by not only making reference to the affair that she had with a much younger man, but also talking about their own marital issues and attendance at therapy and the supposed healing that they had undertaken, that she quite readily puts it all out there and does so in an icy, glacial manner without any due regard for the impact that it has upon Will Smith. I've analysed for you previously red carpet videos that shows her haughty and once again glacial behaviour, where she instructs him as to what he ought to be doing. There was also a piece of video footage where she's doing a piece to camera in their own home, talking about him and talking to a therapist about Will's behaviour. He does fight back on that occasion, but it demonstrates the way that she just treats him like an object, talks at him, talks about him in his presence, and generally behaves in a high-handed fashion towards him. Given the fact that we've seen the way that she behaves towards him, it wouldn't be a surprise to actually find that Will Smith might be somewhat alarmed to learn that they have been separated for the last 7 years. She, as a narcissist, albeit an unaware one, believes that she loves Will Smith. However, her behaviour demonstrates that she doesn't. However, she does not see this. She believes that they have a special, probably unique relationship, that it is a complex one, that they have to learn what their love for one another means, how their marriage ought to work, an ideal of one another, and, not realizing that she is a narcissist, she has an ideal of Will that is, frankly, unobtainable for him, which results in her devaluing him. Although she recognizes that he doesn't fit the ideal, she doesn't realize that this is her narcissism that's driving this. She, of course, has an awareness about narcissism as a concept. She has made reference to it, but she's not truly aware of what she is. It's evident to me that in the course of their relationship, Jada Pinkett-Smith has always, like any narcissist, wanted the freedom to do what she wants. Driven by that sense of entitlement and lack of accountability, combined with an absence of emotional empathy for Will Smith, she does what she wants, which means she has cheated on him and has admitted to doing so, although she of course sought to euphemize it by calling it an entanglement. I suspect that she has cheated on other occasions with other people also. It's likely that they have spent time apart, as well as spending time together, and Will would not have regarded it as a separation, but simply doing their own thing for a period of time, but they were still very much married. That she decided to take time outs to find herself, to heal, to understand herself better. And Will, actually loving this woman, puts up with it. He has been conditioned, and as a consequence of the addiction that he has to her as a narcissist and his own emotional thinking, rather than think, hang on a second, this woman's shitting all over me, she disappears, she goes off on these find herself jaunts, she's seeing other people. I shouldn't be putting up with this. But he does. He does because his emotional thinking tells him that there's something worth saving. His emotional thinking will seize upon the fact that he has children with her and that he wants to keep his family unit together. She'll have indulged in attendance for her and Will at therapy during the supposed period of separation. And during this time, there's little doubt that it's been a period of uncertainty for Will, and probably has been for more than 7 years. But he thinks that they're still together. And what he doesn't realise is that all of these behaviours that she has been engaging in are part of his sustained devaluation. Like any dynamic between narcissist and spouse, he is the intimate partner primary source, which means he was given the golden period as he was seduced, he was given a golden period as he was embedded as the IPPS, and then he's been having the sustained devaluation pockmarked with respite periods, namely the return of the golden period. Accordingly, during this period of sustained devaluation, she has been cheating, she has been spending time away from him, she has been going to therapy, she has talked about the work that they need to do. These are devaluing acts. Will have believed that they were still together and working through the problems. In some instances, he would be completely confused as to what was actually going on. During this time, she may well have talked about having separation. She may well have said, we're having a trial separation, and then they come back together. What I do not think has happened is that 7 years ago they agreed to separate, and they have been wholly separate during that period of time. Why? A number of reasons. She, as a narcissist, would have disengaged wholly from him if it was a proper separation. There would have been a disengagement trigger, and more than likely she'd have moved on and found an alternative intimate partner primary source. However, there hasn't been a disengagement trigger, and therefore she has kept hold of him, and instead has subjected him to this sustained devaluation of basically doing the hokey-cokey. They're together, then they're not, then they're together, then they're not. But it's not a formal separation, and it hasn't been one for 7 years. There have just been shorter, intermittent periods. They've turned up at events together. They've clearly lived together. They've attended therapy together. Then there have been periods where they've been apart. And therefore, as a consequence of the needs of her narcissism had basically wanted to keep hold of him because he's easy to control, he provides plenty of fuel, character traits, and residual benefits, and therefore there's no disengagement trigger to say, enter a proper period of separation and get rid of him. Instead, the narcissism says, keep hold of him, but he's let you down. Therefore, you devalue him. You devalue him by cheating on him. You devalue him by spending intermittent periods of time away from him. You devalue him by criticizing his behaviors, etc., etc. It appears to me that they will have had some intermittent periods of separation during a number of years, which are part of the sustained devaluation, but there has not been a true and formal 7-year separation. What I see is that at this moment in time, Jada Pinkett-Smith's narcissism has decided what it needs to do is make her relevant. Her star is somewhat fading compared to his, and therefore, with the launch of her new book and the necessity, of course, of asserting control over people and drawing fuel, her narcissism has concocted this idea of a revision of history, where she has now started giving interviews without any due regard for how that makes Will Smith feel by saying, "Oh yes, we've been separated for 7 years." She truly believes this because her narcissism makes her believe it. But in actual fact, it has been a period of sustained devaluation, which may well, and probably has, contained periods of separation, but there has not been a formal separation for 7 years. If you think about it, if there had been, it would be the case that this information would have leaked out long ago. Furthermore, Will Smith likely would have moved on. She would have moved on. She would have had a new intimate partner primary source, and done so in a more notable way. The fact is, her narcissism recognizes that Will Smith still has a purpose to serve for her, and therefore she won't let go of him. Instead, she continues to devalue him, and has done so by spending some time away from him, cheating on him, etc. But it's evident to me that what's happening here is that this narcissist is giving interviews in order to assert control and draw fuel, to attend to character traits and residual benefits, because she's desperate to remain relevant, which is part of the issue of control and drawing fuel, and therefore her narcissism has concocted this suggestion that they've actually been properly separated for 7 years. And this then gives her something to talk about, is an explosive bombshell which has people talking about her, thus giving her fuel. Thus, she's engaging in a revision of history as to what has really gone on. I'm going to be examining in a number of videos what she's actually said and why did certain things happen as they did in the past to help you understand more about this particular narcissist's behavior. But I don't believe that they've been truly, properly separated in the fullest sense of the word for 7 years, but rather it's simply he's been in the sustained devaluation for many years, and at this point in time, she's revising history to say that is what has happened. I will wager that Will Smith has a very different view to what she's saying. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.